to calculate ROI. So this is uh, we have taken a slightly different approach, like you mentioned, the performance consulting approach. So in the beginning, when you start off with an organization, you have to establish a structure to L&D. So you have to kind of segment the employees, need to look at what job families need, what kind of learning, all of that. Once that job is done and you have enough learning material for people to get developed in their current role, then you move on to saying that how do you prepare people for your next role. So in this aspect, what we did was we focused on specific areas for the business. So for example, like I mentioned to you in the earlier example, if it was, if the organization was looking at sales, then, that was our area of focus. The top talent development, I want to share another example, really quick with you. For top talent development, we realized that, usually we follow bell curve, right? So the top talent gets slightly higher salary, the first segment, and the next segment gets a little lower, gets a little lower, gets a little lower. That's how we, all of us have traditionally followed, the compensation. So what we said was, let's measure the value that a top talent brings in. What's the value of top talent? And let's put a number to it. When we calculated the number to it, we found that the productivity, and this was not an original idea, we blatantly copied it from the Google idea, where they put a measure on top talent, which was 300 times that of an employee who was not top talent. Okay. In our case, the value came to 20 times. Okay. So we said there is 20 times gain, so therefore, investment in this area will lead to this much performance. So what we are doing now is saying that whichever group we are working on, we are saying what is the investment that we are going to make, and therefore how does it translate into business value in whatever they do. So in this case, in top talent, it was easier. Certain segments, it was easier. Operations, it's far easier. Sales, it's easier. Client partner, it's not so easy because it depends on farming results. So for everything, our algorithm is different for every segment. So, each segment needs to be approached and approached differently. So our focus is on creating a new algorithm, looking at the problem, seeing that what's the value their employee brings in. But top talent value really worked for us.
And madam, there also could be the citations like individual differences there. Maybe the person is at a lower level, but considering his potential and contribution, say an assistant manager, maybe he's giving out his best and his contribution really matters. Maybe in that case, the return on training and development or L&D.
Yes.
So that could be a different algorithm.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
that has to be related.
Absolutely.
So you are really connected very in a just excellent way.
Move on. There are
Thank you. Thank you.
gentlemen at the back wanting to ask a question.
Good evening. I am Karan from Zoe's Food and Nutrition Program. We are talking about data, we are talking about analytics, we are talking about, as a HR head, you people talk about KPI, KRI, and its periodic analysis, performance, related to performance, organizational bottom lines, things like that. My suggestion would be that you people should seriously think about one more data. And that data is the health data of the employees. Health is directly related to performance. Now, if you have a periodic assessment, say for example, a monthly data of the health parameters of your employee, as the lifestyle diseases are percolating, as the lifestyle diseases are increasing, and organizational expense on curative expenditure is increasing, that is a direct cost for the company. One is you lose performance, because I have a very relevant data which says on an average employees lose, or the organizations lose 14% of their work time because of various, either you call it excuse or you call it a cough and cold or fever or post lunch lethargy or whatever it is. So organization lose 14%, and that is a direct hit to the bottom line. Now, second thing is if you relate it to the performance, if you have one data, if you have a periodic assessment of the health of your employees, and every fortnightly or monthly, if you maintain this data, you can relate it to the performance, you can relate it to KPI, you can relate it to KRI, everything can be done. So why spend more on curative, why not on preventive? And this is directly linked to harnessing human potential or whatever it is you are saying. So this is quite relevant, which we are ignoring, and it is going to cost a lot to the organizations. So this is some data which HR guys have to look into it seriously. We have measures in bits and pieces. Okay, if somebody falls sick,
Sir, we get your passion, and we get your passion, and we absolutely agree. I think all three of us would agree that it is something that we need to focus on, right?
Thank
and
you.
Gautam would really want to share what they do in Deloitte.
Sure, so I must thank you for bringing this point up, and we definitely understand, and we do, in terms of our concern for our professionals, and we just don't talk only about the performance evaluation or other analytics which you mentioned about, but let me tell you that every year, not month, but every year we run a survey for our professionals where we assess from a work-life balance or a mental health and a well-being index which we survey every year, and we make those interventions. Like we have employee assistance program, we have flexibility work options, we have mass career customization, which is very unique to Deloitte, because this is something which is designed for the newer generation which is coming to our workforce to cater to their needs of what kind of a work life they want. They want to work four days in a week, we allow that. They want to work 6 hours in a week, we allow that. There are certain compensation adjustment which is quite obvious, but there are these measures which are being taken to take care of the health and to take care of what their priorities are. So while I completely understand and appreciate your point, what you mentioned, I just would like to highlight some of the things which we did from Deloitte.
So I
standpoint.
appreciate whatever you're saying, but how many organizations are there like Deloitte? So this has to spread.
Sure,
across.
sir, we accept that. Like I'll tell you, for us, while we all look at health parameters in our organization, we equally focus on the trigger that would lead to a deterioration in health, whether it's stress, whether it is physical workplace discomfort, to look at saying what is the trigger and how do we address that. And we have people who are trained from a psychologist background or a counseling background who would offer their services. So yes, I think organizations are doing a lot on that, but are they doing enough? No, absolutely not. And I think all of us here would agree that there is a lot more. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other question that we would have? One last one before we end for the evening. We are right on dot 5:31.
There's one.
There is, yes. Can I have a mic here?
Hi, my question is for Ms. Bindu. You did mention about a beautiful case study, and I was hearing all this. There's this one point wherein I would want to have some more understanding, which was resource management warehouse. So I'm also from L&D, and I would want to get some more perspective of how do you manage it, what goes into making it, and how do you sustain it through the times.
Right. Yes. So, our resource management warehouse is called Domain University because we are specializing in 6 or 7 domains. What we've done to an earlier static domain university where we had just put in content, it was basically a content dump. We then got the social angle to it. So we then started using features which we have never leveraged before. In fact, one of my colleagues, who heads the technology-enabled learning is sitting right there, Sarika. So what we introduced is the social learning element and said, how can employees contribute and what's in it for them to contribute? So we had to go as basic as saying that, the maximum contributions on the discussion board, it's linked to your performance, who are the SMEs, who are content experts, all of that. So we really had to make a systemic change because otherwise we wouldn't get the data in. Once the conversation started, then we started seeing that there is a huge amount of data coming in. Our next challenge then was, how do we remove data from there and not about creating data? So right now, currently our knowledge warehouse, we are spending more time in taking off data which is not relevant. rather than putting in more, because then now content is there enough. We would, during the break or, outside, I'll be happy to share with you what are some of the systemic changes we did to make that a live environment rather than a dead static environment. Yeah, thanks.
You'd want to.
Yes. Okay, so today's session, I think it was equally learning for us as well. And one thing we have collectively realized that data analytics is something which we cannot do without. Yes, there are a lot of complex and expensive solutions in the market, but we must assess what is suitable for us and what is our requirement at least for next 1 to 2 years time. And then we should, because everything requires investment in money as well as resources. And on top of it, we should be very clear in terms of how do we, whatever we are deciding to capture, is it relevant in our business context? If that alignment is there, I believe we'll be able to serve the business needs much better in terms of providing them insights, patterns, and analytics, other than just sending reports which are post-mortem.
Sure. Thanks. I think that's a great insight. And on that note, I think we've talked about analytics. We've talked about how do we get prospective employees, current employees engaged on social media. It's something that I think that's close to all of our hearts, and we could go on and on. But in the interest of time, I'd like to thank you for being a very patient audience. And I think, as the gentleman here pointed out, DMA did some good analytics to get the panel that I have. I think they were very, very competent, and I'm sure they've enhanced your knowledge level. So thank you, Gautam, Tarun, and Bindu, for joining me and for an engaging session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would really like to thank this esteemed panel here for enlightening us with the upcoming technology and how the corporate world is changing with the change in technology. Thank you so much for that. Now it's time to felicitate this esteemed panel here. So I would like to call Ms. Pooja Ahuja to come forward and felicitate Mr. Amit Malik. I would like to call Professor Gaurav Gupta, Faculty IBA, to felicitate Mr. Tarun Katyal. Next, to felicitate Ms. Bindu Vinodhan, I would like to call Professor Shruti Ahuja, Faculty IBA. Now, last but not the least, to felicitate Mr. Gautam Pandey, I would like to call Preeti Sabarwal. Thank you. Now, with this, we have come to the end of this 6th Mega HR Conclave on harnessing human potential in growth-oriented environment. And I would request Dr. Ekta Saxena to propose the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to convey my sincere thanks to all the delegates for all the sessions,